Today is Wednesday, April 2nd, 2022. I thought I was done with my Be Prepared series of videos and my engagement with Facebook even, but Russia's brutal invasion of Ukraine compels me to express myself once again. Years ago, maybe 12, maybe 15, I don't know, I made a few video chats. My aim was to articulate myself and to record my thoughts about what was going on in the world. I just talked to the camera. And given all that is going on with the world these days, I decided to have another little video chat with myself. This time though, since I plan to share my little chat, I scripted this to keep myself from rambling. It is Wednesday, April 6, 2022. Clearly we face turbulent times. The world is unstable. Old rules are being broken, domestically and internationally. More than ever, the future is uncertain and the end is always near, especially in Ukraine. Make no mistake, this is a war and we are in it. The world is disrupted, looks like a medieval war coupled with a new kind of war in an interconnected world. Russia's President Putin is deploying a siege strategy of bombing cities, killing civilians, in order to force Ukrainian submission. The US and Europe have limited their response to supplying weapons to Ukraine, and especially by applying severe economic and technology sanctions against Russia. This is largely out of fear of setting off a nuclear confrontation. Sitting here in the US, I have to ask myself, what is this really about? Where is it going? And what does this mean for me? I don't know the right word to use to describe what's going on. This is a seismic event per Fareed Zakaria in one of his recent Washington Post columns. Seismic seems appropriate. Shockwaves radiate from the epicenter. Earthquakes are often followed by aftershocks and sometimes cause tsunamis. As the saying goes, once a war starts, we don't know how it ends, we don't know how long it will last, and we don't know how much it will cost. It's now about 6 weeks since the Russians invaded Ukraine. Clearly, they are not winning. The situation is grim for Ukraine. The country is being destroyed by indiscriminate bombing. Thousands of civilians are being killed, millions of Ukrainians are being displaced, and international relationships have been scrambled already. Ordinary Russians will ultimately pay a price too. At this point, I see no end in sight, and prospects for a negotiated settlement appear dim. But who knows? Even if the war ended tomorrow, it would take years for these economies to recover, and the longer the war continues, the greater the damage, the larger the potential for vicious interactions and adverse cycles, and the deeper the consequences. That is a quote from Mohammed Al-Arian on March 7th, 2022. He is president of Queen's College in England, past CEO of the investment firm PIMCO, and considered one of the top 100 global thinkers by Foreign Policy magazine. I guess if anybody can assess the situation and the consequences, he can. I think it will be a rough ride. Europe is caught in a squeeze because of their dependence on Russian gas. All this turmoil is most likely to immediately impact us in the US and other countries via economic shocks. Expect more inflation via supply chain disruptions, commodity translations as it's termed, transmission I should say. And oil, natural gas, fertilizer, nickel, food, particularly wheat and corn, will be impacted for sure. There may even be worldwide shortages. For us in the US, this is puny compared to what the Ukrainians are suffering. And what do we do about all the displaced people? The US is strong. We have to be careful that we don't catastrophize our own situation. I didn't even know that was a word until a couple of days ago. It's a psychological term coined by psychologist Albert Ellis. Psychology today defines it as a cognitive distortion that prompts people to jump to the worst possible conclusion, usually with very limited information or objective reason to despair. I have to show you this. Even my favorite news source, the National Enquirer, has succumbed. I see articles in here broadcast about such things as Putin's delusions, an unstable mental state, the possibility of nuclear escalation, the risk of World War III, possible chemical weapons deployment in Ukraine, and Russia as a terrorist state. Yogi Berra famously said, "Predictions are hard, especially when they're about the future." So I'm not making predictions. I don't really know how things are going, much less what will happen tomorrow and over the next few months. But it's still necessary to assess the situation. What happens will depend to some extent on what we do in the U.S. A successful outcome will probably call for continued action on our part. We will have to answer the question, what do we stand for as a country? We may have to make some really tough choices soon. So I leave it a problem. It's too early to catastrophize. I tell myself to think through the situation, avoid knee-jerk reactions. Be prepared for some sacrifice. What would be the least bad outcome? How can we help achieve that? Is there anything I can do personally? And that is my little talk to the camera today.